Welcome to CVine News Network. Today we are doing double duty where we are recording for the radio show on AM 590, and we are also recording this on Zoom to be able to put it all out on social media and our CVine website. Today we are very blessed to have Chad Bianco, who is the Riverside County Sheriff. He is the man. He's the new sheriff in town. He's actually been now here for a couple of years, but this man is taking the sheriff's office by storm. He's making a huge difference in California. The man has unbelievable courage and standing up for the rights, the constitutional rights of the U.S. citizen, of California citizens. And because of this, he's influencing many other sheriffs around the United States. In fact, he's going to be on Fox News a little bit later this evening, so we got him first. We'll see if we can get this out there ahead of time. And also, of course, I have my co-host, Leonard Bacani, who is here. He's also a retired police officer, and he is an investigative reporter with CVine as a volunteer. Welcome, Chad.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm just tickled pink that you are sheriff in Riverside County, because I love what you're doing. Now, one of the things that has been fascinating to me is you have stood strong in standing up for the constitutional rights for Californians. And in fact, you went on air. I think you actually went on Fox News once before. And well, you know what? I'm going to let you say what it was that you said about standing strong for constitutional rights and wearing masks and so on.
Sure. It's been a year ago now that this started, when we first had the initial orders and the initial scare, the initial fear that came out about how bad the virus was going to be, and about what our restrictions were and what the rules were going to be. And I have to be honest with you, when it first came out, and we saw what was being posted on TV from China, and that we were being told by government officials and doctors what to expect and how horrible it was going to be. And they're telling me in my meetings, in my county meetings, that we're going to the potential of losing a quarter to a half of the population to this virus. I have to admit that was concerning to me. So the initial, we have to lock down for 2 weeks, we have to stay indoors, I was all for that. And I was a little afraid to come to work. I didn't want to be dying. While I may be ready to die, I don't want to die. Mm-hmm. And it was very concerning at the time. And then shortly after, in the meetings that I continue to have with our government officials and the information from our medical personnel, all of the information started to conflict. So then you have different doctors saying one thing compared to other doctors in different areas. And there's not a consensus of this virus. And then as we find that, as the information comes out and as we learn more things, this wasn't as disastrous and as deadly as what they said it was going to be. Now, I admit that someone dying early is not good. That's not a good thing. And I feel very, very sorry for them. And, we prayed for their families. I lost 2 deputies very early on, one of the first in the country to lose deputies to the virus. And I lost 2 in the same day. And so it is real to me. As people would say, oh, I think it's not real and I'm not a believer. That's not true. It's just that as we went on, I realized that if you're sick and if you have these, if you're predisposition to viruses or to colds, or you have anything that's going to make you more susceptible to serious illness, then you should have stayed home, and you need to be the one that protects yourself. The government can't protect you. You have to protect yourself. And then when it became punishing the sick people and closing down businesses and then handpicking which businesses would close down, and then it became, we moved into that realm of violating people's rights and their constitutional freedoms. And while the government may have a right to quarantine sick people, I do not believe they have a right, and no one believes they have a right to quarantine non-sick people. And by a little wordsmithing from our government officials, that's how they got into these lockdown orders and everything else. And it just got to, my personal belief is that I am here to, not only protect public safety from criminals, but I swore an oath to both constitutions, the U.S. Constitution and the state constitution. And when it becomes our politicians making orders that may or may contradict with the Constitution, and when there are so many, when it became completely obvious that these were political decisions being made. And at that point, as a law enforcement professional, I'm not going to be the enforcement arm of a politician. And there are far too many instances in our history, instances in our past, where people are bringing up that they want to label police as being bad because of the slavery days and everything else. That is such garbage. It drives me nuts when I hear that. But then in the same breath, I'll use their argument against them. I'm not giving in to the politicians. So they're claiming that the police gave in to politicians and they enforced these laws and these rules way back when. I'm an example that isn't going to happen anymore. And I am your best friend if we're talking freedoms and public safety. So I made a decision that I was not going to take this lightly, that I was going to make a very outward public stance against the orders, against the mask mandates, the arresting people for not wearing masks, the arresting people for going to work or for not closing down their businesses. And I think it was obvious to all that did go viral, and that made a very big splash in all media. And my response to that is, I believe it's because that's what everybody thinks and believes anyway. And they just don't have the platform that I had to be able to express that. And as I've been out in our cities and our towns and groups and everything else, that's what I'm hearing. The very loud minority of people that are accusing me of violating my oath and breaking the law, and that the governor needs to fire me and all of those things. They are a very, very few. They're just very, very loud. And I think that when we give into the loud mob, then we have problems. And I think that's really where we are now. And I took a stance very early on that I would not do it. I think it was successful here for Riverside County. It obviously, my popularity here is very, very high. And not to say that in a boasting manner in any way. I am very, very humbled by that, but it should go to show most people out there that that's what the majority feels and believes. I'm just thankful I had the platform to express it.
Well, I think you're actually saving law enforcement in a lot of the ways, be taking the stand that you are, because just about this couple of weeks ago, May 5th, we did an interview with Greg Anderson, who was the police officer last year in Washington State that went on, did a video of himself in uniform, police uniform, in his patrol car. That was a discussion to other police officers. And he was talking about what was going to happen if police officers kept following orders from individuals coming down from the top that was violating people's rights. And it was, what he was saying was very, very true. So we are blessed that we have a sheriff that stands for people's rights and continues to move forward with that. That is what is going to save law enforcement and keep the people safe. So thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. And I believe you wholeheartedly.
Well, you know what, Sheriff, the governor had threatened to withhold funding from counties that don't enforce the lockdown. Since you made a public statement that you were not going to enforce the lockdown orders from the governor, was there any repercussions of that? Did the state actually withhold funding for Riverside?
Not that we know of yet. You know, we're still in, you know, in that fiscal year. So we still have money that is coming from the state, from the federal government to the state, that is supposed to go down to the counties. So that remains to be seen whether or not it has or not. Right now, it doesn't appear that is so. And that really is the reason why I came out with that statement. Right before I came out with that statement, the governor had been in his own press conference, and he had made a statement directly referring to Riverside County, because we had been in the news with him because of my statements and because of us wanting to open up and everything else. It was very obvious that he has a dislike for me and for, you know, I'll take it a step further and say law enforcement in general. But particularly me, because I was being very vocal. When he threatened to keep that money from us, that is why I came out and said that. Number one, I wanted everybody to know what he was doing and how a politician should not act, and especially one that represents the entire state of California. And, you know, quite honestly, I thought that if it's out in the open, he certainly isn't going to bully me into anything, and I'll call him on it. And then everybody's going to know. And then now the spotlight is on him. The glasses, the transparency glasses are on him to make sure that he does what he's supposed to do, and he does not keep that funding from us. So the train of thought was both ways, that I could make him mad, and then he would certainly do that. But I think it's the opposite. The county, I mean, we're 2.5 million strong here in Riverside County. That's a big voice. That's a big populace. And for him to withhold that CARES money, that federal money to us because I'm not enforcing his order, that would have looked very poorly on him. And, you know, just the fact that he did it and the way that he was handling it, I think that led to why we're in this recall in the first place. And afterward, I find it very odd to me that he has not reached out to me. He's made it very clear that he doesn't like me. He contacted the president of our sheriff's association to try and get me to stop, for them to put, you know, some type of muzzle on me. And, you know, that's nobody's words. That's my word. That's the context, how it was relayed to me. And they basically told him, you know, look, if you call him and tell him, he speaks for himself. He doesn't speak for the whole of all of us. And he never reached out to me once. So I find that very concerning a little bit. If someone said anything like that to me, I would reach out to them to find out where it came from. But obviously it was true. And obviously I called him on it. So it was a little bit embarrassing. And, you know, it's not that I have nothing against him politically. I really don't, even though, you know, that's where the argument goes, that they throw Republican and Democrat into it. I don't believe in arresting innocent people while he's letting criminals go. And I don't believe he wants to have that argument with me, because the common sense position on that is I'm right. And I don't think he can back up his position where he is. So, you know, that's where we are. As for the money, he hasn't withheld it so far, and I really don't think now that he will.
Good for you. Good for you, Sheriff Chad. Well, I'll tell you, it was interesting. We have interesting people all over the place in California. Mad Max, or I should say Maxine Waters, also had some interesting things to say when she went out of her domain, so to speak, and going to Minneapolis and trying to stir up trouble just before the results of the Chauvin trial came back, and actually did manage to cause quite a few problems. It came out on a couple of various different mainstream media, The Guardian and Reuters and so on, where the judge had blasted her, so to speak, because of her abhorrent comments, that's a quote, and was actually considering the possibility of the whole trial being overturned because of everything that she had done. Now, Sheriff, what if she or anybody else had done something like that in California? Not to hold your feet to the fire, but
that's not holding my feet to the fire. I guess one of the problems with me and with having a a live meeting with me is I'm not afraid of answering anything, and you never know what you're going to be careful of the question you ask, because you're going to get an answer. So with a question concerning her, she should be very lucky that she does not live in Riverside County. I think that she represents everything that is absolutely wrong with politics. She's a career politician that is a millionaire on a government salary that has no business being a millionaire. There's no real honest way for her to have as much money as she has. So beyond that, back to the incident at hand where she traveled across state lines to incite a riot, which basically that's what she did. And she's done it here in California, where she did it outside of business, where she was telling everyone to get in people's faces and, do the things, Republicans, get in their faces and do everything you can to dissuade them from, having the opinion that they have. And I will tell you this, and she's not off the hook as far as it comes from Riverside County, because luckily in Riverside County, we have not had the riotous behavior that some other places have had. I think that I'm very, very proud of the residents of Riverside County. And while we did have last June, we had that moment of, peaceful protests that turned into not so peaceful and into riotous. What we found was those were people from out of town and some out of state. But if we ever have that here and my investigators arrest people for that behavior, if we can link that behavior to something that she has done or something that she has said that has led them down that path of why they did that, I will be the one that puts handcuffs on her, and she will have to answer to inciting a riot here in Riverside County, because that is a disgrace what she did. It is completely disrespectful to this country, and a politician that is supposed to be a representative, not just her district. And I guarantee you, she doesn't represent her district. She has her own personal agenda. To someone that represents the state. When she went out of our state into another state as a government official, she was representing this state. She disrespected all of us, because that is not normal, good citizen human behavior. And for anyone to think that it's okay to incite riots and to incite criminal behavior and injury to other persons, for you to believe that should even come out of your mouth and it's okay. And I heard something that she said after the fact where she was sticking up for herself. If we can link her to any type of damage or riot here in Riverside County, she will suffer the consequences.
You have no idea how good that is to hear. And I think that there's going to be quite a few other states. Hopefully the sheriffs are listening, because if the governors aren't stepping up in some of these proverbial liberal states and stopping all the damage and the corruption and so many people living in fear, they don't know what's going to happen next. The sheriffs need to step up. And so again, I think you're really setting an excellent example. Well, we're almost to the end of our interview here. As you were aware, okay, I am going to throw this out at you. Everyone listening, there is a movement going on, poor Chad, but there's a movement going on trying to talk Sheriff Chad Bianco into running for governor of California. And I mean, he's doing a fantastic job in being a sheriff, and we all love him dearly. But ooh, boy, as you've just been listening, he would be a kick butt governor. So if for some reason, the time comes, because I know you said, no, you weren't thinking about it unless you're not, right?
Well, I'm honest at everything I say. So to say that I was not thinking about it, I mean, that would not be an honest statement, because there was so many people that have asked me, that have tried to convince me to run, that I know there's a rather large Facebook group that is trying to get me to run and gain more support. Yeah, thank you. But so of course I thought about it, but by thinking about it, I also have to think about what I'm doing here and what my goals are and what my visions are for Riverside County Sheriff's Department. And it's while I would never say no to anything, I can still say not at this time to certain things. So I still think that I'm in the right place where I belong right now. I think I'm needed here. I think the department needs me here. I think the community needs me here. And to quite honestly, I think that, you know, what we're trying to do with law enforcement in the state, I think that law enforcement needs me here. So while I'm not content doing what I'm doing, I'm always trying to make our position better, our law enforcement better. I'm happy where I'm at, and I think it'll stay, at least for the current time. I'll stay right here. I have my own campaigns to worry about for sheriff, so I'm right now is not the right time for me to run for governor.
Well, that's understandable. And, you know, like I said, we love you here. We want you to stay as sheriff. You know, doing both would, I don't even know if that's possible. I don't think
it is.
But
That was the first thing that I asked.
that's great. Okay, is there anything that you wanted to announce to anyone very quickly? Something you would like to say to fellow sheriffs or people, or here's your chance.
Wow, put me on the spot. You know, I think that, you know, the office of sheriff is very, very unique because we are not beholden to politicians. And I think that right now we are in a position where we are being hurt by our politicians from both sides. And I think that for political agenda, for ego, and sometimes it's that, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's just afraid to speak up. But for our sheriffs, we don't answer to any of that. There is not one politician on either side of the aisle that I am beholden to or that I have to answer to. I answer to the residents of Riverside County. And I think that everyone should know that wherever you are, the most powerful person you can elect for your safety is your sheriff. And you should take that serious. You should really investigate who it is that you're supporting and who you are wanting to elect in each 4-year cycle. And it's for the rest of us out there, I want to tell all of them now that we are elected by the masses, not to be politicians, to be for public safety. And I think that the biggest threat to public safety right now is, at least in California, it's our government. And it's our legislature's obvious move away from public safety. They are doing everything that they can to make it difficult for me to protect you. And so while we go into another election season, we're starting one right now, but there's a bigger one next year. I think before you vote for your assemblymen and for your representatives and for your local senators, I think that you need to take a very good look at how they vote when it comes to public safety. Are they voting for criminals' rights, or are they voting for your rights? And if they're voting for criminals' rights, which most of them are right now, they need to be voted out. We need to care about our safety. We need to care about our communities. We need to care about our children. We need to care about our elderly, and releasing everyone from prison, making everything not a crime, taking away the consequences for bad behavior. That is going to harm all of us. So your sheriff is probably the most open person that you can find to get the best information on who to vote for. And I will tell you straight up, it doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. I will tell you whether or not the person you're thinking of voting for is pro-public safety. And if they are not, we can't be voting for them anymore. So it's time we stand up as the masses. Apathy is a bad thing, and it gets us into this position. And so we need to make a stand. We need to be vocal and find us a better government.
Outstanding. Well said as usual. Thank you, Chad, for joining us today. You were fantastic.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely.
Thank you also, Leonard, for joining us. Have a good night, everybody.